Hello students, welcome to class 3 of your module 5. So in this class, we are going to discuss about some of the important topics. Those are menus, then in the menus, we are going to talk about its steps, then picking operation, and with respect to picking, we are going to see one more mode, that is a selection method, double buffering, design of interactive programs, toolkits, widgets, and frame buffer, logical operations, and finally XOR and color. Okay, so all with respect to that, again we will see that in that we will see one more part, that is overlay planes. Let us see these menus that you already seen in your program called scanline algorithm. Okay, there we have used the menus options. Okay, so we are going to discuss in detail about these menus in this chapter. So normally the glut library will support this pop-up menus. Okay, you have seen the menus. Okay, so that is the thing, but whenever you open up the any operating system, okay, whenever you right click of the mouse button, it is going to pop up some menus, and in that menu you can see the number of items will be there. Okay, so whenever you click on that item, a particular task can be triggered. So here, as we know that the glut library will support the pop-up menus. A menu can have submenus also, means within a particular item, okay, again you can have a sub items. Okay. So three steps that is always involved whenever we are including the menus in a program. The first of all is define the entries for the menu. Means we have to, first of all, we have to enter the entries, that is the thing, but the items for the menu. Then next, define the action for each menu item. For each and every item that you are placed within the menu, for them the action should be defined. The action carried out if entry selected, means once you click on that particular item, a particular event should trigger. Then next, you have to attach that particular menu to the mouse button. Means for at what time, means if you press which button, okay, if you're pressing the left button or right button or the middle button, based upon that only the mouse should it should pop up the menu. As we always we already seen that whenever we press the right button, it is going to pop up the menu, so that particular menu is attached with the right button. In the similar sense, we have to attach the menus for the mouse button. Okay, so these are the three important steps. First of all is we have to define the entries or the items for the menus, how many items that you want you can include. Then define the actions for each and every menu items. Then these actions can be carried out if the entry is selected. Then finally, attach the menu to the mouse button. So with respect to that only, we are going to write the program. Here you can see that defining the simple menu. Normally in the main function of our program, we always include this menu options. Yes. First of all, I have to create the menu. For that, glut create menu and some name for it. Okay, so here demo underscore menu is our user defined menu function. Okay, so you can see that our demo menu. Okay, so next one, it is having some parameter, means it is going to take some ID, integer form. In that, we are going to use the switch. Okay, switch ID. If the case 1 is there, okay, then exit. Okay, then it will come out. The next one, case 2, that is nothing but we are increasing the size, means size equals to 2 times of increasing the size. Okay, that is our case 2. The next one is case 3. If our size is greater than 1, then we are reducing it by half. Okay, so finally we are going to call the display function again, that is glut post to display or simply display function. So here the next one is yes, we have defined the menus. Okay, that is nothing but items. Okay, items that we have defined. Okay, So here, now that we should add it in our menu entry. That is, first of all, we are going to label it as a quit. Okay, quit is the item that we are going to see on our menu. The first one is quit. Okay, along with that, we are going to pass the value for it. That is nothing but one. Means this is the first option. Okay, this is the it is the identifier for that particular menu entry. Means for that item entry. Next one, glut means this one is associated with this case one. Then next one, glut add menu entry. Here we are going to label the item name as increase the size, and it is having the identifier that is 2, means it is related to the case 2. And next, add menu entry, we are going to label the item as decrease size. Okay, and identifier will be 3, that is associated with the case 3. Once this items has been defined for the actions, next we have to attach the menu for the particular mouse button. So here we have included the right button. Okay, so yes, we have satisfied the third case also. See, this particular program is completely dependent on these three cases. First we have defined the items for the menu. Then next we have defined the actions for each and every menu items. Then finally we are attaching the menu to the mouse button. In the similar sense, we have performed everything. Now assume that if you want to support the hierarchical menus means a particular item will be there. Whenever you click on that, again it is going to pop up its sub menus. Okay, means sub items. At that stage, how we can implement? For that, you can see that we are going to use the same program, but some kind of alterations. Here the glut create menu. Okay, because yes, this is already one menu is there, and here one more sub menu based upon on the item. Okay, when I press that item, so again one more small menu will be opened up. So here glut create menu. Okay, and this is the name for that menu, that is a size menu. Okay, so our main menu is nothing but that is top menu. Okay, and the small menu whatever we will get, that we call it as a size menu. Okay, so that is going to given as a sub menu. Now the sub menu is the having the values for it. Now you can see that glut add menu entry here, increasing the size and decreasing the size. So 2 and 3, the same thing whatever we have done over here. Okay, so now instead of using the increase size and decrease size separately, okay, we are including that one into the our sub menu. Okay, so this 2 is associated with this particular case 2. Okay, and next one is this 3 is associated with the case 3. Then next we are going to define the top menu. Okay, that is the main menu. Within that we are going to add the menu entry, that is quit. Okay, quit is the name for it. Okay, and identifier is 1. Then next we are going to add the sub menu, that is nothing but resize, and it is having the identifier that is sub menu. Sub menu is nothing but our size menu, and it is having 2 and 3. Okay, so whenever you click on the resize, okay, of that item in the top menu, okay, so you are going to get the size menu or the sub menu. Within that again you have two options, that is increase size and decrease size, and all these are attached to the mouse right button. Okay, next one is picking operation. Okay, as itself says that we are going to perform the picking operation. We have already discussed in this fifth module the 6 logical devices. In that we have seen one of the logical input device, that is a picking. Picking is the logical input operation that allows the user to identify an object on the display. Means on the particular display, so many objects are there. Okay, whenever you click on that particular object, okay, which indicates that I have picked that object. In the similar sense, in the simplified way, if you want to know what is a picking operation, in your mobile, you have a multiple icons. Whenever you click any one of the icon, which is nothing but you are picking that icon. Okay, so once you click on that, it is going to pop up. Okay, such kind of operations we call as a picking operations. Although the action of picking uses the pointing devices, the information that the user wants returned to the application program is not a position. Yes, as I said, in your mobile, you're picking the particular icon, means with the help of pointing device, and here your pointing device is nothing but your finger. So here this information that user wants to be written means you want to open that application, but that it does not give the where is the location of that particular icon, what is the position of that icon, it does not going to return. Okay, so that is what the picking operation. But this picking operation is having some kind of difficulties. What is that difficulty? Difficulty of picking in modern systems is the forward nature of rendering pipeline. Okay, what is this rendering pipeline? Rendering pipeline is nothing but it is a pipeline in which it is going to take the input as a vertices from the user, okay, and finally it is going to produce the output in the form of pixels. Okay, so we already have this kind of pipeline that is we call it as a rendering pipeline, which converts the vertices from the user into the pixel form. Okay, so because of this forward nature, we can't convert the pixels back to into the vertices form. Okay, that is not possible. Okay, so for that, primitives are defined in an application program and move forward through the sequence of geometrical operations, rasterization, fragmentations on their way to the frame buffer. Means because this rendering pipeline consisting of some four important stages. That is, the first stage we call it as a vertex processing. Okay, the second one is we call it as a clipping and primitive assembly. The third one is rasterization. Okay, and the fourth one is fragmentation. Okay, so in the vertex processing, it is going to take the input as a vertices. Okay, and it is going to process on the vertices, means it is going to use the whichever the vertices are inside, whichever the vertices are outside. Then next that will be given to the input to the input as for the clipping and fragment assembly. Okay, sorry, clipping and primitive assembly. So it is going to clip, okay, based upon the left right bottom top boundaries. Okay, and next one, it is going to assemble, okay, all those vertices, okay, so that it is going to get a desired clipped object. Then next that is given to the rasterization. Rasterization is a technique, or it is a method in which the all the vertices are get converted into a kind of pixel form. Okay, but these pixels are dispersed, okay, from each other. Okay, means the kind of distances will be there between the these pixels, means each and every pixels are computed individually. Okay, and next that pixels will be given as an input to the fragmentations. So in the fragmentations, all these particular pixels are being clubbed together so that we will frame a single picture. Okay, so that is nothing but in a kind of pixels form that what we can see on our screen. Okay, so because of this forward nature of this rendering pipeline, we can't convert, means we can't convert that pixels back to the our vertices form. Okay, so although much of this process is reversible in mathematical sense, the hardware is not reversible. Means if we take the paper and pen, okay, we can perform this operation that is nothing but a pixel form to our vertices form. Okay, by with the help of mathematical sense, okay, just location of x and y that we can determine. But our computer graphics hardware is not reversible. Hence, converting from a location on a display to the corresponding primitive is not a direct calculation. Okay, so once you got some particular pixel, okay, on your display, okay, to the corresponding primitive is not a direct calculation. You can't convert back that one into the particular primitive form. Okay, so that is the drawback of this picking operation. So there are three approaches to deal with these difficulties. One is selection, second one is bounding boxes, and third one is a very common one, that is a double buffer. First one, selection. Adjusting the clipping region and viewport such that we can keep track of which primitives in a simple small clipping region are rendered into the region near the cursor. So here we are going to use a kind of clipping regions, okay, and the viewport, okay, so that we can track that which primitive in the small clipping region are need to be rendered, okay, whenever we place the cursor over it. Okay, so that is what we call as a selection method. The next one is bounding boxes or extents, or we also call it as a axis aligned bounding boxes. This is for an object of interest. Means there is a particular box, Okay, means bounding box means some particular objects are bounded within the box. Okay, so the extent of that box is a small rectangle aligned with the coordinate axis that contains the object. Means within the box only the object will be placed. Okay, so from that within that boundaries only you can pick the object. Okay, for two-dimensional bounding box, okay, it will be rectangle in shape, and for three-dimensional bounding box, it will be always in a right parallelepiped or in a cubical form. The next one, third one, that is a double buffering. So here we are going to use the two color buffers that we call it as a front buffer and back buffer. Okay, so we have already discussed a front buffer and a back buffer in the color cube program. Okay, front buffer job is to keep on rendering the object front buffer job is to keep on displaying the content of that uh, uh, it will display the whatever the object has been rendered. Okay, it is going to display to the screen. Okay, and next one, back buffer job is to keep on rendering the object. Okay, so this back buffer is will render the object and it will give it to the front buffer. Front buffer will display to that screen, and again it is going to ask the back buffer, is there any new kind of displays that I want, any kind of new object is there that I need to display. Okay, so a kind of the synchronization will be maintained between the front buffer and back buffer. We can perform picking in 4 steps that are initiated by the user define a pick function in the application. That is, first of all, we have to draw the object into the back buffer with the picking colors. Okay, so first of all, we have to draw the objects in our back buffer with the particular colors. We have to pick the colors. Okay, for that object, what type of colors that you want to apply. Then we get the position of the mouse using the mouse callback function. Okay, so if you want the position, okay, then we can go for the mouse callback function, that is glut mouse func. We use the function gl read pixels to find the color at the positions in the frame buffer corresponding to the mouse positions. Okay, so with the help of that mouse callback function, whenever we place the mouse, okay, on the particular frame buffer. Okay, frame buffer means in the display. Okay, so we are going to, it is going to call this a read pixel function, and it is going to read the color of that particular region. And finally, we search a table of colors to find which object correspond to color read. Means there will be a color lookup table will be maintained, okay, which composed of a red, green, and a blue component. Okay, so here normally if you are using the 8-bit, okay, for individual color, that is 2 to the power 8, 2 to the power 8 for the red, 2 to the power 8 for green, and 2 to the power 8 for blue. So totally you have 2 to the power 24, 2 to the power 24. Okay, that many entries in the color lookup tables. Okay, so from that particular table, okay, you can pick any of the color. Okay, so it is a combination of red, green, and blue component. The next one is the picking and selection mode. Implementing the picking within the OpenGL pipeline is that we cannot go backward directly from the position of the mouse to primitives that were rendered close to that point on the screen. As we already discussed that OpenGL pipeline or the rendering pipeline is not backward in nature. Okay, so for that we have to go for this mouse callback functions. Okay, so whenever we place the mouse cursor on the screen, okay, so this gl read pixels, okay, it is going to retrieve the particular color of that particular position on our frame buffer. OpenGL provides a complex process using the rendering model called selection mode, okay, to do picking at cost of extra rendering each time that we do picking. Okay, so whenever we are performing the selection mode, okay, means I'm selecting, okay, in a particular region I'm selecting something. Okay, so that is a kind of a picking operation only. Okay, so but it is depends upon the mouse callback function, okay, where it is going to point. The number of steps and functions are required to do the picking using the selection modes are normally the function GL render mode, okay, that will select one of the three modes. That is GL underscore render, GL underscore select, and GL underscore feedback. This render, normal rendering to the color buffer, select for the selection mode, and feedback, that is for the feedback mode, can be used to obtain the list of primitives that were rendered. Okay, means it is for the rendering, it is for selecting, and it is for the feedback, means what type of primitive that has been selected, okay, and its relative informations will be given back to the user. When we enter the selection mode and render a scene, each primitive within the clipping volume generates a message called hit that is stored in the buffer that we call as a name stack. Means whenever we are performing this selection mode and whenever we're performing this rendering of the scene, each primitive within the clipping volume that always generates a message that hit. Hit means it is a successful attempt of picking the color of that particular object, okay, and that will be stored it in a kind of frame buffer that we call as a name stack. The function GL select buffer to identify an array of selection data means you have selected some particular object, okay, now you want to store in a particular buffer, okay, that is we are going to use the GL select buffer. So here that is the size, okay, that is n, okay, that is the size of the buffer, and next one is the the size, the buffer, okay, that is the specific buffer name, okay, specifies the array buffer of size n in which to place the selection data, means whatever the with the your mouse cursor, okay, wherever you are selected, all the informations will be stored in the buffer, and here that buffer name is name stack. There are four functions for initializing the name stack, that is void GL init names, which is used for initializing the name stack. Next one is a push name, okay, which is going to push the name of the name stack. The next one pop name, pops the top name up from the top name stack. Then load name replaces the top of the name stack with the name. Okay, you can see that here initialization, pushing, popping, and loading operations can be seen here. The next one is double buffering. Okay, as we have seen that double buffering consists of two color buffers. That is a front buffer and back buffer. Front buffer job is to always display, whereas the back buffer job is to draw or render that object. We can swap the front and back buffers in our application program. The swap buffer function using the glut library, which is what we are going to use is glut swap buffers. Okay, you are used to this command in your programs. Okay, so if you miss this glut swap buffers, there will be no any kind of interactions between the front buffer and back buffer. We set up the double buffering by using the operation glut underscore double. Okay, so you are using in the main function glut init display mode. There you are using this glut underscore double. Okay, so we are not going to use the glut single. We are going to use the glut double, glut underscore double. Okay, which indicates that I am using the double buffers within the display callback. Means within the display callback function glut display func. The first step is to clear the back buffer through the GL clear, and the final step is to invoke the glut swap buffers. So first we have to call the GL clear function, then next we have to call the glut swap buffers. Means it is for the display purpose. Double buffering is a standard in animation, whereas primitives, attributes, and viewing conditions may changes continuously because our object is having in a three-dimension. It is in three-dimensional nature, so kind of movement can be observed, a kind of animation can be observed. Hence, double buffering is always changes the orientation, shape, size of the object. Then next, as we know that in the main function, glut init display mode, double we are going to use instead of single, and RGB color mode. And in the display function, we always use the glut swap buffers. When we use the double buffering, we would like OpenGL to draw into the back buffer, but we can control which color buffer is used for drawing through the function that is nothing but GL draw buffer. As we know that the back buffer by default it always draw the object. okay, and the front buffer is always have the display operations, but we can change that constraint or that restrictions also. So by it is by default, when a double buffering has been enabled, it is equivalent to that GL draw buffer, okay, is GL back. Means by default GL back always draws the object. But if you don't want GL back, okay, if you want some other buffer should do, okay, then you can overcome, okay, just by calling the function GL draw buffer, and you can specify, okay. So you can specify, I want both front and back buffer should do the drawing operations, okay. So it is also possible. Next one is a design of interactive programs, okay. So it talks about what is the characterize what are the important characters, okay, for a good interactive program, okay, so that we can recognize and appreciate the programs, okay, so which will gives us a very smooth display, okay, without any flickering. And next, the variety of interactive devices, that is nothing but it should support various interactive devices like mouse, keyboard, joystick, okay, whatever the input, the the new input devices that you provide to it, it should support it. Then variety of methods for entering and displaying the informations, okay, a kind of reading, a kind of displaying the informations. Then it should use the easy to use the interface that does not require any substantial effort to learn, okay. So you can see that almost all the OpenGL commands, okay, by looking at the commands only you can understand that what is the meaning of it, okay, because they are because in the commands only they will depict what they are, okay. For example, GL clear, okay, what is it, is it says about clear, right, it is clearing something. Similarly, GL clear color means it is clearing the color, okay. So such kind of commands are essential for the user, so that they does not require any kind of a learning, okay, means additional learning, attending any seminar and all, okay, is not required. Then it should give the very good feedback to the user, appropriate feedback to the user. Then it should tolerate the each and every user errors. And next, the design that incorporates the consideration of both visual and motor properties of the human. Visual properties of the human means as the human will pursue the image, in the same sense our camera or our program should also pursue. And next one is a motor properties means as the human can change his hand and legs positions, he can turn his legs and hands, okay, in the same sense, that is motor. Motor means a movement. In the same sense, our objects can move their they can also change their positions, okay. So such kind of properties we should include on our program. Indirectly, the seventh point talks about the viewing and transformation concepts. So these are the toolkits, widgets, and frame buffer, okay. I want you should go through this one. There is no any important in this one. The next one is logical operations. Okay, so here in the default mode of operation, a new set of pixels simply replaces the corresponding pixels that are already in the frame buffer. Such mode we call as a copy or replacement mode. I hope you can recall, I think in the second module, we have talked about this front foreground color and background color. Okay, there we have performed this AND operation or XOR operation. Okay, so in that same continuation can be seen over here. Assume that in the frame buffer, okay, the background color is already applied. Okay, background color means assume that some white color. Okay, means within the frame buffer, all the its pixel values, okay, will become white. Means all the values will become 111. Okay, so on that particular white background color, okay, if you want to draw any triangle with a red color, okay, so that to corresponding to that particular location, that white color will be replaced with the red color. So the kind of immediate, okay, that immediate changes that you can bring on that particular frame buffer is the thing but a copy mode or replacement mode, as you are replacing the old background color to the new color, new foreground color. Now here, consider the writing of a single pixel into the color buffer. Okay, so writing of single pixel into the color buffer, the pixel that we want to write is called source pixel. Means here you can see that in this figure, this is the source. Okay, so now user want to store, he want to store the new pixel. Okay, means he want to see that particular pixel on the screen. Okay, so that pixel we call it as a source pixel. Okay, so the pixel in the drawing buffer, okay, that the source pixel will affect is called the destination pixels. So here you can see the kind of XOR operations. Okay, you can see a kind of XOR operation. So here actually this is not the correct symbol, okay, for the XOR operation. So here, this source pixel, okay, that is going to be given, okay, here this is not a D9, this is a D dash, okay, it is a D dash. So this source pixel, okay, will be given to the destination pixel. Okay, assume that there is no D, okay, initially there is no D. Okay, so sorry, no D dash. So once you return this source pixel, okay, into the destination, that we call as writing the pixels. Okay, and next, if you want to apply, okay, again uh, again if you want to apply the color, then from that destination you are going to pick the color that we taken as a destination pixels. Okay, so here I'm reading that one, so it is a read pixels. So here a kind of XOR operation can be performed between the source pixel and the destination pixels. So it is going to give us a new D dash, and that will be stored in the right pixel. So such kind of mode operation we call as a XOR mode operation. As we know that XOR mode operation is nothing but it is a kind of a mod 2 operation, in which when the two bits are of same, okay, we always get if two bits are same, okay, then we always get the 0. If two bits are different, then we always get 1. Okay, so if you assume that here the source is 0 and destination is also 0, okay, so we will get a 0 only. Okay, so similarly here, if it is 1 and it is also 1, we will get 0. If this pixel is different or this pixel is different, okay, then we will get a 1. Okay, the first is replacement mode, in which the each bit in the source pixel replaces the corresponding bit in the destination pixel. As I said, whenever initially we are performing the source pixel, assuming that there is no any pixels present in the destination, means we are performing the replacement, means we are copying this source pixel into this destination. Okay, then in the second mode, what we are going to do, we are going to apply the exclusive OR operation, in which corresponding bits in the each pixels is combined with the source pixels with the help of logical, that is exclusive logical or logical operation. If you see the example here, if S and D are corresponding bits for the source and destination pixels respectively, and we denote the new destination pixel as D dash. So that is nothing but D dash equals to D XOR S. If we apply the source twice, we return to the original state in the destination pixels. So here, this is the D and this is the S. Okay, whenever we perform the XOR operation, okay, so we will get the D dash. Okay, for that D dash, again, if you perform the XOR operation, we are going to get back that previous destination pixels. Okay, so I want you should analyze this part, okay, by taking the bits. OpenGL supports all 16 logic modes. Okay, you can see that it supports 16 logic modes. Okay, within that, a copy mode is always default in nature. Okay, so we can change these modes by enabling the logical operations. That is nothing but GL enable GL underscore color underscore logic underscore op. Okay, then we can use which type of XOR, which type of logical operation that you want to perform. You can go for XOR, you can go for OR, AND, NAND, NOR, XNOR. Okay, whatever the logical operations that you want, you can apply on it. Okay, so before doing that logical operation, you have to enable that. Okay, you must remember that OpenGL always supports the 16 logical modes. Within that, copy mode is always default. You can see here XOR and color. Here, assume that we are using the system that stores the color components 8 bits, so that blue is stored as a 24-bit RGB. Means each and every red, green and blue, okay, consisting of 8 bits. Now I want to draw a blue line, okay, assume that blue line, okay. So red is 0, green is 0, blue is 1, okay. So that is my primitive, that is a blue line that I want to draw. Suppose that the screen is cleared with a white color, means it is having the background color white, means red is 1, green is 1, blue is 1. Then I want to draw the blue line, okay, using the XOR mode. Then what I can do, I can perform the XOR operation. If I perform the XOR operation between this white background color, okay, and this particular blue line, what I will get? So here 0 and 1, okay, is the thing, but I will get 1, 0 and 1, I will get 1, and here 1 and 1, okay, both are same, I will get a 0, okay. So on the screen, can I able to get the blue line over here? What is my result here? Okay, so here I'm getting a kind of yellow color. A kind of yellow color means red and green. Okay, when you combine, you will get a red color rather than blue, because XOR operation is applied bitwise. Okay, whenever you're using this XOR operation, you are interested on the blue line, but you are getting a kind of yellow. Okay, so this possible annoying the visual effects are consequence of our use of XOR mode operations. So to avoid this finite drawing, using the copy mode is required. So instead of going for the XOR mode operation, okay, we always go for the copy mode operation. And copy mode operation is always faster as compared to the XOR mode operation, because copy does not care about the bits. It will just replace the older bits. But in the XOR operation, okay, it will compute, it will perform the XOR operation between each and every bits. Okay, if the bit size increases, okay, then computation time also increases. Another common use of XOR mode is for drawing the cursor on the display. Cursor can be small rectangles, small crosses, and other shapes. So this particular XOR mode can be used only for whenever we are using the cursor. You can see this particular cursor, whatever is moving on the screen, okay, is applied, okay, by use of XOR mode operations. The next one, cursors and overlay planes. XOR operations, that is GL underscore XOR, are slower as compared to the GL underscore copy. Okay, as we have seen, it's a drawback, GL XOR operation. An alternative is to provide the hardware support for these types of interaction by providing the extra bits in the color buffers by adding what we call as a overlay planes. Overlay planes are nothing but a kind of hardware support that we are going to give to the computer. Okay, these are a kind of additional color buffers. Okay, so there will be a kind of one red overlay, green overlay, and blue overlay planes. Okay, this is the additional, and it is very limited in nature. Okay, almost I think most of the people won't provide this overlay planes. Only in the older days, okay, few computers were supporting this overlay planes. Nowadays it is very difficult to see, because nowadays we can see high definition graphics cards is replaced with all these overlay planes. It is typical color buffer may have 8 bits for each red, green and blue, okay, and one red, one green and blue for the overlay planes. Means our color buffer having the red, green and blue, okay. To support that one, we have additional hardware, that is a color buffer, that is one for red, one for green, one for blue, okay. A kind of supporting planes can be seen. When the color buffer and the overlay planes are displayed, the contents of the overlay planes acts as if their values are were copied into the color buffer. That is, if there is a bit set in the red overlay plane and corresponding bits in the blue, the green overlay plane are not set. Means if in the in the red color buffer, okay, the bit has been set, that can be copied into the red overlay planes, okay, and the remaining blue and green overlay planes are not at all set. Overlay planes or hardware features are not present in almost all the systems, and GLUT provides support for overlay planes if they are supported by the overlay planes. So it depends upon the architecture, it depends upon the vendor. Okay, so if they want, they can introduce these overlay planes, but these overlay planes are having the very limitations, okay, because their size is small and they can't handle the complex operations. Okay, so but GLUT library also support this overlay planes. Okay, so in the next class we are going to talk about a polyhedra and Bezier curves. Okay, so here we are going to stop. Thanks for listening.